Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Chris Weidenbar, and tonight we warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Clive Julius Kaeppel, whose story will be read shortly by his family member, Wing Commander Carl Oatley from the Royal Australian Air Force. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, by visitors, and by students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, St Joseph's School, West Tamworth, Maitland Public School, St Bridget's Primary School, Kyogle, St Paul's Primary School, Rutherford, and Ballymore Public School. I now ask all who are able to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. Thank you. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway lands. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved. And here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Clive Julius Kaeppel, who was killed while fighting in the First World War. Clive Kaeppel was born in Mittagong, New South Wales in 1896, the son of Ernest and Frances Kaeppel. He attended Newington College in Sydney and made a large contribution to life at the school. Described as a staunch, big-hearted boy, he played in the first 15s rugby team in 1913 and 1914 and represented the school at the Combined Schools meeting of 1914. He was also a member of the school's cadet team that won the Commonwealth competition in 1913 and the State Shield in 1914. Clive clearly had a taste for the military, as well as his time with the cadets. He served for 6 months in the militia force, and when the First World War began, was studying for the entrance examination to join the military college at Duntroon. The outbreak of the war interrupted Clive's plan, and he elected to sign up straight away, enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force on the 24th of September 1914. Within a month, he had embarked from Sydney, travelling to Egypt in preparation for the campaign on Gallipoli. In a letter written to his former school, Clive wrote that he was camped near the Great Pyramids, which he climbed and explored, as well as making trips to Cairo to visit the crowded streets and markets. In April 1915, Clive was granted a temporary officer's commission in the 29th Division of the British Imperial Force, with whom he would serve until September 1915, when he resigned his commission and returned home to Australia. Months after his return from Egypt, Clive, who went by the nickname Chiller while in the armed forces, again enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force. This time he joined the 19th Infantry Battalion and sailed for the war on the Western Front in Europe. He joined the 19th Battalion in the field as a temporary corporal in early December 1916, just in time to endure the bitterly cold winter of that year. On the 11th of January 1917, he transferred once more, this time to the 18th Battalion. Clive spent the rest of his war with this unit. In 1917, he participated in a series of battles as Australian forces followed German troops retreating to the Hindenburg Line. In late August, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. On the 3rd of May, Clive and the 18th Battalion formed part of the right flank of Australian and British forces at the Second Battle of Bullecourt. At 3:45 a.m, they advanced from their trenches into heavy machine gun fire and barbed wire entanglements. They managed to take and hold some German trenches despite furious counterattacks and were relieved in front-line duties on the 4th of May. In the fighting that followed over the next 2 weeks, the Australian Imperial Force lost nearly 7,500 casualties. In the months following, the battalion moved north to Belgium, where the focus of British operations had shifted. On the 20th of September, Clive and the 18th Battalion took part in the Battle of Menin Road, the first operation of the Third Battle of Ypres that involved Australian troops. The battle began with an intense artillery barrage, after which the Australian forces leapt from their trenches into no man's land. During the operation, they managed to seize their objectives despite fierce resistance from German concrete pillboxes and machine gun strongpoints. But Australian casualties numbered over 5,000. Clive was one of those casualties. At around midday, as he advanced across no man's land, he received gunshot wounds to his shoulder and left leg. He was treated on the field and by the 25th of September had been taken to the 1st Australian General Hospital in France. He was described as being in an extremely serious condition on his arrival and had to have his leg amputated above the knee. Not long after surgery, septicemia set in and Clive battled for a month to overcome the infection. This was, however, a battle he could not win, and he passed away on the morning of the 24th of October, 1917. He was 21 years old. His remains now lie in the Centre for Cemetery Extension in France, along with over 8,000 Commonwealth soldiers of the First World War. Sergeant Clive Julius Kaeppel is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Clive Julius Kaeppel, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.